"Derek, if you want to eat, you'll have to serve yourself in the kitchen. There's no more room here." Those words weren't directed at me, but they might as well have been. I stood there, empty plate in hand, as my daughter Claire continued laughing with her friends, pretending I wasn't even there. In my 68 years, I had never felt so small, so invisible in the presence of my own flesh and blood. Let me tell you what led to that moment. My name is Ruth. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, in a wooden house my husband Walter built with his own hands 40 years ago. He passed away 5 years ago. Since then, the house has felt too big, too quiet. But I couldn't bring myself to move. The walls hold our memories. His touch lingers on the banister he carved, and sometimes, in the early morning light, I can still feel him here. My daughter Claire is 42. She married Derek, 45, who works in investments. They live 20 minutes away in a modern house made of glass and concrete that always feels cold to me, no matter the season. They have 2 children, Ethan, 16, and Mia, 13. I used to see them every week. I used to bring apple pie. I used to help Claire with laundry, with cooking, with everything. She always said she needed me, until the day she didn't. It was a Thursday in March when Claire called and asked me to come to dinner at their house. It was Derek's birthday. She said it would be intimate, just family. I was happy. I spent the afternoon baking his favorite carrot cake with cream cheese frosting. I carefully placed it in a container, put on my best navy blue dress, and drove over. The driveway was full when I arrived. Cars I didn't recognize lined the street. My heart sank a little, but I told myself it was fine. Perhaps Claire had forgotten to mention other guests. I balanced the cake in one hand and rang the doorbell with the other. Claire opened the door, phone pressed to her ear. Her eyes barely registered me before darting away. "Mom, put the cake in the kitchen and sit wherever there's space," she said, already turning back to her conversation. The house was crowded with Derek's colleagues, neighbors, people whose names I'd never heard. There was no space. I stood in the corner of the living room for almost 30 minutes. My feet began to ache. My hands grew sweaty around my purse straps. Not a single person offered me a chair. No one asked if I wanted water. Ethan walked past with his headphones on, not even a wave. Mia was glued to her phone. I held my purse with both hands and pretended everything was fine. When dinner was announced, I made my way to the dining room. 12 chairs surrounded the long table, all occupied. Claire sat at the head, laughing at something Derek had said. I stood there, holding my empty plate, waiting for someone to notice. No one did, until Derek looked up and said loudly, for everyone to hear, "Ruth, if you want to eat, you'll have to serve yourself in the kitchen. There's no more room here." Heat rushed to my face. The room didn't exactly go silent, but I felt a ripple of awkward glances. Claire didn't say a word. She just looked away and continued talking to the woman beside her. I looked at Ethan. He was scrolling through his phone. I looked at Mia. She was eating. I didn't say a word. I placed my plate on a side table, picked up my purse, and walked out the front door. No one called after me. No one followed. The spring air felt cool against my burning cheeks as I drove home in silence. For the next 2 weeks, Claire didn't call. Not once. I didn't call either. For the first time in 42 years, I went without speaking to my daughter. The house grew quieter. I started waking in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling, replaying that scene in my head. Trying to understand what I had done wrong, I thought about Walter. What would he say if he knew our daughter had treated me this way? The man who taught Claire to ride a bike, who built her a tree house, who walked her down the aisle. Would he recognize her now? 3 weeks later, I saw Claire at the grocery store. She was with Mia, examining avocados. My cart squeaked as I approached them. Claire looked up, her face blank, as if I were a stranger who had wandered too close. "Hi, Mom," she said flatly. My throat tightened. "Claire, why haven't you called?" She shrugged, placing an avocado in her cart. "I've been busy." She pushed her cart forward, Mia trailing behind. The girl glanced at me, then quickly away, as if I were someone to avoid. I stood there between the produce aisles as other shoppers moved around me. That night, I called my sister Ruth in Charleston. We share the same name. Our parents weren't particularly creative, but she's 3 years older, 71 now. I told her everything. Ruth was silent for a long time. "Ruth," she finally said, "you've always done everything for that girl, and maybe that's the problem." I didn't understand. Ruth continued, "You never said no. You never asked for anything in return, and now she thinks you have no value." I hung up the phone and cried until my eyes burned and my chest ached. The following month, Ethan had a performance at school. Claire had told me about it months before. I bought a ticket. I went alone. I sat in the back of the auditorium. When Ethan took the stage, I searched for Claire in the audience. She was sitting in the front row next to Derek. There was an empty seat beside her. I could see she had placed her purse on it, as if saving it for someone. But no one ever sat there. When the event ended, I made my way to Claire. I hugged Ethan, congratulated him on his performance. He mumbled a thank you, eyes darting to his friends across the room. Claire looked at me, her expression serious. "Mom, you didn't have to come. I know you have your things." I stood speechless. Before I could respond, Derek called out and they walked away. Ethan didn't. Look back. What things did I have? My empty house? My silent meals? The crossword puzzles I did to keep my mind sharp? The garden I tended because Walter had loved fresh tomatoes? A week later, I received a call from Mia. She was crying, said she'd fought with Claire, that nobody listened to her at home, that she felt alone. I told her I could pick her up, that she could stay with me for a few days. Mia seemed relieved. But 20 minutes later, Claire called. She was furious. "Don't try to turn my daughter against me, Mom. You have no right." Her voice cut through the phone like ice. "Claire, I wasn't—" The line went dead. I spent the following weeks alone. Spring arrived, but I barely noticed. I stopped baking. I stopped calling. I began to wonder if I had been a good mother, if I had ruined everything without realizing it. The wooden house seemed smaller, the walls thinner. I could hear the wind passing through the cracks. In June, I discovered by chance that Claire had hosted a baby shower for a friend. I saw the photos on Facebook. Her house was full of women, all laughing, holding wine glasses. I wasn't invited, didn't even know she was planning it. I felt something break inside me. It wasn't anger, it was worse. It was the certainty that I had been erased. That week, I went to the cemetery where Walter is buried. I sat on the grass beside his headstone and talked to him, as I always do. I told him about Claire, about how she had changed, about how I felt invisible. And for the first time, I cried there. I cried until I had no more tears. The groundskeeper found me there, an old woman talking to a stone. He didn't say anything, just offered me his handkerchief and walked away. I wondered what he thought, if he pitied me, if he had seen others like me, clinging to granite when the living had pushed them away. Have you ever felt like a ghost in your own life? Present but unseen, speaking but unheard? In July, my sister came to visit. She stayed for a week. She saw how I was, thin, quiet. She said, "You need to confront Claire. You need to ask what happened." I told her I was afraid to hear the truth, afraid to discover I was no longer important. Ruth held my hand. "Ruth, you deserve respect, even if it hurts." At the end of July, I called Claire. I asked to talk. She said she was busy. I insisted. She sighed and arranged to meet for coffee in town in a public place. When I arrived, she was already there, arms crossed. I asked, "What did I do? Why are you treating me this way?" Claire looked out the window. Then she said coldly, "Mom, you've always been too needy, always needed validation. I grew up. I can't take care of you anymore." I felt as if she had slapped me. Take care of me? My voice was barely audible. When have I ever asked you to take care of me? Claire checked her watch. "I have a meeting in 20 minutes. Answer me, Claire. Mom, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The drama, the neediness. I have my own life now. And I'm not part of it?" She sighed. "Of course you are, just differently. You're getting older. You need to find your own friends, your own activities. Derek and I can't be responsible for your happiness." I stared at my daughter, this stranger with Claire's face. I never asked you to be responsible for my happiness. I only asked to be treated with respect. She stood up. I have to go. We'll talk later. We didn't. That night I remembered something. Years ago, when Claire was in her early 20s, she went through a difficult time. She had lost her job, ended a relationship. She came to live with me for 6 months. I took care of her. I cooked, cleaned, listened. She used to say, "Mom, I don't know what I'd do without you." But now it seemed like that had never happened. It seemed like I was a burden she wanted to drop. In August, I had a birthday. I turned 68. No one called. Not Claire, not Ethan, not Mia. I spent the day alone. In the evening, I ate a piece of pie left over from the previous week. I didn't light candles. I didn't make wishes. I just sat in the kitchen, listening to the clock on the wall. 2 days later, Ruth called. She said she had spoken with Claire, that she had tried to make my daughter understand how much she was hurting me. Claire had told Ruth, "My mother has always been dramatic. She wants attention. I don't have time for this." Ruth cried as she told me. I didn't cry. I had no more tears. In September, I saw Ethan on the street. He was with friends coming out of a diner. I waved. He saw me. I know he did, but he pretended not to. He turned away and kept walking. That hurt more than anything, because Ethan was my grandson, my first grandchild, and I had held him in my arms when he was born. Now he pretended I didn't exist. That night I made a decision. I would stop trying, stop calling, stop showing up, stop waiting. If Claire wanted to erase me, then so be it. I would live what remained of my life in peace. Alone, but in peace. I spent all of October without seeing anyone from my family. Ruth called every week, but Claire, nothing. Ethan, nothing. Mia, nothing. Derek had never called anyway. I began to get used to the silence. I began to think that maybe it would be like this until the end, that I would die without answers, without forgiveness, without goodbyes. In early November, I received a call from Mia. She was crying again, but this time it was different. She said, "Grandma, I found something out. I need to tell you." My heart raced. Mia told me she had overheard a conversation between Claire and Derek. They were discussing money. Derek said I was a problem, that I could interfere with their plans. Claire had agreed, said that the less I was around, the better. I asked what plans. Mia said she didn't know, but that it had something to do with inheritance, with the house where I lived. That same night, I called Ruth. I told her everything. Ruth was silent. Then she said, "Ruth, Walter left that house to you, but Claire always thought it should be hers too. Remember when he died? She asked about the will." I remembered. At the time, I thought it was just curiosity. Now I understood. Claire was waiting for me to die, waiting to inherit, and the less she saw me, the less guilt she would feel. The next day, I went to the county clerk's office. I reread Walter's will. Everything was in my name. The house, the bank account, everything. But there was a clause I had forgotten. If I died, everything would go to Claire, automatically, without conditions, without divisions. I returned home. I sat on the porch. I looked at the yard where Walter had planted the rose bushes. They were withered, with no one to care for them, and I understood. Claire didn't hate me. Claire wasn't upset with me. Claire was just waiting. I spent the following week thinking about everything. The diapers I changed, the nights I stayed awake when she had a fever, the dreams I abandoned so that she could have hers, and I realized that none of this mattered to her. I had been useful. Now I was just an obstacle, but I was still alive, and I could still choose. On the last Sunday of November, I changed my will. I left the house to a charity that cares for the elderly. I left the bank account to Ruth, who had always been by my side, and I left a letter for Claire. In it, I wrote everything I felt, everything she made me feel. And at the end, I wrote, "You may have erased me from your life, but you won't erase what I built." 3 days later, Claire appeared at my door, without calling first, without warning. She said she needed to talk, that she missed me, that the children were asking about me. I looked into her eyes, searched for sincerity, only saw fear. She had found out about the will. I said calmly, "Claire, you humiliated me. You excluded me. You treated me as if I didn't matter. And when you need me again, I won't be here. Not because I'll be dead, but because you killed me little by little and I let you." She tried to speak. I closed the door. Today I wake up and have coffee on the porch. I listen to the birds. I smell the dew on the grass. Ruth visits me every month. Sometimes Mia calls. She says she's sorry, that she wants to see me. I tell her the door is open, but only for those who respect me. Claire hasn't returned. Ethan hasn't called. Derek never cared, and I learned that love is not sacrifice without limits. Love is also dignity. It's also knowing when to stop giving before there's nothing left of you. The house is still big, still quiet, but now I've chosen this silence, and it doesn't hurt anymore. When my phone rang yesterday, I almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers usually mean someone trying to sell me something I don't need, but something made me pick up. "Mrs. Anderson?" A young woman's voice. "Yes, this is Ruth Anderson." "This is Leanne. From Asheville Community College. I'm calling about your application to our senior audit program." I had almost forgotten. 3 weeks ago, on a whim, I had applied to take a creative writing class. At 68, I thought maybe it was time to put my stories on paper. Walter always said I had a way with words. "Yes?" My voice sounded uncertain, even to my own ears. "We're pleased to inform you that you've been accepted. Classes begin next Monday at 9 a.m. After I hung up, I sat in Walter's old armchair, letting the news sink in. A student, me, at my age. I imagined what Claire would say if she knew. Probably something about me being ridiculous, trying to be young again. But this wasn't about being young. This was about being alive. The next Monday, I put on a blue blouse Walter had always liked, grabbed a new notebook, and drove to the college. My hands trembled slightly as I parked. The campus buzzed with young people rushing to classes, laughing, living their lives at full volume. I felt out of place, like a quiet footnote in their loud story. I found my classroom and hesitated at the door. What was I doing here? I almost turned around. Then I saw her, a woman about my age standing just as uncertainly in the hallway. "First day?" she asked with a nervous smile. "First day," I confirmed. Her name was Eleanor, 72, widowed 3 years ago, taking the class because her husband had always told her she should write down her stories. We sat together. The professor was younger than my daughter. She looked at our class, 3 seniors and 15 college students, and smiled. "Everyone has a story," she said. "Today we start learning how to tell yours." That evening, I came home and did something I hadn't done in months. I baked an apple pie, not for Claire, not for anyone, but myself. As the sweet scent filled the kitchen, I felt something unfamiliar. Not happiness exactly, but possibility. I took a piece of pie out to the porch and watched the sunset paint the mountains gold. Walter and I used to do this every evening. "Best show in town," he'd say, raising his coffee mug in salute to the dying day. For the first time since he died, I raised my mug too. "You were right, old man," I whispered. "Best show in town." The writing class became my anchor. Every Monday and Wednesday, I had somewhere to be, someone expecting me. Eleanor and I started meeting for coffee before class. Then another classmate joined us. Harold, 75, a retired high school principal with a dry wit that made us laugh until our sides hurt. "The 3 Musketeers," Harold called us, raising his coffee cup. "All for one and one for all." I wrote about Walter, about our life together, about building the house, about raising Claire. I didn't write about the dinner party or the months that followed. Not yet. Those wounds were still too fresh, the words too sharp. Professor Martinez, call me Anna, please, read my pieces aloud sometimes. The young students listened, really listened. One girl, barely 20, came up to me after class. "Your writing makes me miss my grandmother," she said. "I'm going to call her tonight." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. December came. Christmas decorations appeared in shop windows. I hadn't heard from Claire since that day at my door. Mia called once, her voice small, asking if she could visit. I said yes, of course, but she never came. I imagined Claire forbidding it, or maybe Mia just forgot. Teenagers have their own worlds, their own priorities. Eleanor invited me to her house for Christmas dinner. Harold would be there too, and Eleanor's son and his family. No one should be alone on Christmas, she insisted. I accepted. Then I went to the attic and found the box of Christmas ornaments Walter and I had collected over 40 years. Each one held a memory. The little wooden train Ethan had loved to play with, the angel Claire had made in 2nd grade, the glass ball with our names and wedding date etched in silver. I decorated the tree alone, talking to Walter as if he were there, telling him about my new friends, about the writing class, about the words I was finding again. I didn't mention Claire. He would know anyway. Walter always knew when my heart was breaking. On Christmas Eve, I wrapped 3 presents: a hand-knitted scarf for Mia, blue, her favorite color, a book for Ethan. He used to love reading before phones and computers took over. And for Claire, a small wooden box Walter had made. Inside, I placed the letter I had written but never sent. Not the angry one, a different one. One that said I loved her still, that I always would, that doors can close but don't have to stay closed forever. I drove to their house early Christmas morning before they would be awake. The sky was still dark, stars fading as dawn approached. Their house was dark too, except for the glow of Christmas tree lights visible through the front window. I placed the gifts on the porch, rang the doorbell, and walked away. I didn't wait to see if anyone answered. Some gifts are meant to be given without expectation of thanks. Eleanor's house was warm and chaotic in the best way. Her grandchildren, 4 of them, all under 10, ran circles around the adults. Her son David hugged me like I was family. Harold arrived wearing a Santa hat and carrying a bag full of presents. "For my favorite ladies," he announced, handing packages to Eleanor and me with a flourish. We ate too much. We laughed until we cried. We told stories about Christmases past. I felt something crack inside me, not breaking, but opening. Like a door long shut, finally letting in light. When I got home that night, there was a small package on my porch. No note, just a box wrapped in silver paper. Inside was a frame holding a photo I had never seen before. Walter holding newborn Claire, his face a mixture of terror and absolute joy. On the back, in handwriting I recognized as Mia's, were the words, "He would want you to have this." January brought snow and silence. I continued my classes. I met Eleanor and Harold for coffee. I wrote and wrote and wrote. Words poured out of me, about Walter, about our life, about the house he built, about the love that constructed our days like he had constructed those walls, carefully, with attention to detail, meant to last. One Tuesday morning, as I was leaving for class, I found Ethan sitting on my porch steps. His shoulders were hunched against the cold, his breath visible in the winter air. "Ethan?" I couldn't keep the surprise from my voice. He stood, awkward and tall. When had he grown so tall? "Hi, Grandma." He shoved his hands in his pockets. "Can we talk?" I invited him in, made hot chocolate like I used to when he was small. He sat at the kitchen table, looking around as if seeing the house for the first time. "Mom doesn't know I'm here," he said finally. I nodded, waiting. "I saw you at Christmas, leaving the presents." He stared into his mug. I wanted to come out, but I was scared. Scared of what, sweetheart? Of Mom, of what she'd say. He looked up, his eyes, Walter's eyes, full of confusion. "Why does she hate you?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "She doesn't hate me, Ethan." "Then why does she get so angry whenever someone mentions you? Why did she throw away your presents?" I sat very still. "She threw them away?" He nodded. "She said we didn't need your charity." I closed my eyes briefly. When I opened them, Ethan was watching me, waiting for an explanation I didn't have. "Sometimes," I said carefully, "adults make decisions that don't make sense, even to themselves. Your mother and we've lost our way with each other, but that has nothing to do with you or Mia." "Mia cries all the time now," he said. "She misses you." "I miss her too. I miss all of you." Ethan finished his hot chocolate. "I should go. Mom thinks I'm at the library." He stood. Can I come back sometime?" "Anytime, Ethan. This door is always open for you." He nodded, then did something that nearly broke me. He hugged me, quick and fierce, before hurrying out the door. I sat at the kitchen table long after he left, remembering how it felt to hold my grandson, remembering that not everything was lost. February brought more snow and an unexpected phone call. "Mrs. Anderson, this is Principal Davis from Asheville High School." My first thought was Ethan. "Is something wrong?" "No, nothing's wrong. I'm calling about our career day next month. Your grandson Ethan suggested you might be willing to speak to our creative writing students. He says you're taking classes at the community college." I was speechless. "Mrs. Anderson, are you there?" "Yes, I'm here. I'm just surprised. Ethan speaks very highly of you, says you have stories our students would benefit from hearing." I agreed to speak. After hanging up, I called Eleanor. "What have I done?" I moaned. "I can't speak in front of high school students." "Of course you can," Eleanor said firmly. "You have more to say than most of those kids have ever heard." I spent weeks preparing. I wrote and rewrote my speech. I practiced in front of the mirror, in front of Eleanor and Harold, in front of the empty chairs in my living room. The day arrived. I wore my best dress, the blue one Walter had given me for our 40th anniversary. I drove to the high school with my heart in my throat. Ethan met me at the front office, his face a mixture of excitement and anxiety. "You came," he said, as if he hadn't really believed I would. "I promised, didn't I?" He led me to the classroom. 20 teenagers looked up as we entered. The teacher, a young woman with kind eyes, introduced me. "Mrs. Anderson is going to talk to us about the power of personal narrative." I looked at those young faces, at my grandson sitting in the back row, and suddenly all my prepared words felt wrong. I set my notes aside. "When I was your age," I began, "I thought I knew who I was and what my life would be. I was wrong. Life has a way of surprising you, of changing your story when you least expect it." I told them about Walter, about building our house, about the joy and pain of raising a child, about losing him, about finding words again at 68. "Your story is never finished," I said. "As long as you're breathing, you get to keep writing it. And sometimes the most beautiful chapters come after you think the book is closed." When I finished, there was silence. Then one girl raised her hand. "What if you don't know what your story is supposed to be?" I smiled. "That's the secret. There is no supposed to be. There's only what is, what was, and what might be. Your job is to pay attention to all three." Afterwards, Ethan hugged me in front of everyone. "That was awesome, Grandma," he whispered. I saw Claire's car in the parking lot as I left. She was sitting behind the wheel watching the school entrance. Our eyes met briefly before she looked away. I raised my hand in a small wave. She didn't wave back, but she didn't drive away either. It wasn't much, but it was something. March brought rain and renewal. The writing class ended, but our little group, Eleanor, Harold, and I, continued to meet. We started a seniors writing circle at the local library. 6 people came to the first meeting, then 12, then 20. "Look what you started," Harold said, nudging my shoulder as we watched the room fill. "We started," I corrected him. Eleanor nodded. "The 3 Musketeers." We each read something at every meeting. I was working on a series of stories about Walter, about our life together. People seemed to connect with them. The simplicity of our love, the everyday courage it takes to build a life with someone. After one meeting, a woman about Claire's age approached me. "Your stories make me think of my mother," she said. "We haven't spoken in years. I can't even remember why anymore." I nodded, understanding completely. "I'm going to call her tonight," the woman continued, "before it's too late." "It's never too late," I told her, "as long as you're both still here." The words echoed in my mind as I drove home, "as long as you're both still here." Claire and I were both still here, breathing the same air, living in the same town, carrying the same blood in our veins. It was raining when I pulled into my driveway. A figure sat on my porch, huddled against the weather. For a moment, I thought it was Ethan again, but as I got closer, I saw it was Mia. She was soaked through, her dark hair plastered to her face. When she saw me, she stood, uncertain. "Mia, what are you doing here? You're drenched." "I ran away," she said, her voice small. "Can I stay with you?" I hurried her inside, got her dry clothes, made hot tea. She sat at the kitchen table, swimming in one of my old sweaters, looking both younger and older than her 13 years. "Does your mother know where you are?" Mia shook her head. "She and Dad were fighting again about money, about the house, about you." She looked up, her eyes, Claire's eyes, full of tears. "Why does everyone in our family hurt each other?" I had no answer that wouldn't add to the hurt. "Let me call your mother," I said gently. "She'll be worried." "She won't care," Mia muttered, but she didn't stop me from making the call. Claire answered on the first ring, her voice tight with panic. "Mia? It's Ruth. Mia's with me. She's safe." A sharp intake of breath. "I'll come get her." "She's upset, Claire. Maybe let her stay the night. I'll bring her home in the morning." A long pause. "Fine. Put her on." I handed the phone to Mia. She listened more than she spoke, nodding occasionally. "Yes, I know. I'm sorry. Okay, bye." She handed the phone back to me. Claire was still on the line. "Ruth?" "I'm here." Another pause. "Thank you," she said finally, "for calling, for taking care of her." "She's my granddaughter, Claire." "I know." Her voice softened slightly. "I'll see you both in the morning." That night, I made up the guest room for Mia. She sat on the edge of the bed, looking around at the familiar space. "I used to love staying here," she said. "Remember how Grandpa would make pancakes shaped like animals?" "I remember." I sat beside her. "He loved you very much, Mia. He would be so proud of the young woman you're becoming." She leaned against me, just slightly. "Would he be sad about how things are now, with Mom and you?" I considered my answer carefully. He would be sad, yes, but he would also understand that families are complicated, that people make mistakes, that love sometimes gets buried under other things, but it doesn't disappear. "Do you still love Mom?" "With all my heart, every day of my life." Mia nodded as if confirming something to herself. "She cries sometimes, you know, when she thinks no one can see. Dad will say something about you or the house, and later I'll find her in the bathroom crying." I felt a pang in my chest. "Your mother and I need to talk, really talk, but sometimes that's the hardest thing to do." "Adults are weird," Mia declared, flopping back on the bed. I laughed. "That we are." In the morning, I made pancakes. Not animal-shaped, I didn't have Walter's talent for that, but sprinkled with chocolate chips, the way Mia liked them. We ate in comfortable silence, the rain still pattering against the windows. At 9, I drove her home. Claire was waiting at the door. She looked tired, shadows under her eyes. Mia hugged me quickly before running inside, leaving Claire and me alone on the porch. "Thank you," Claire said stiffly, "for taking care of her. Always." She nodded, about to close the door. "Claire," I said, stopping her, "we need to talk, really talk, not about the house or money or the past, about us, about how we find our way back to each other." She looked at me for a long moment. "I don't know if we can." "As long as we're both still here, we can." She didn't respond, but she didn't close the door either. Finally, she said, "I have a therapy appointment on Thursday. Maybe after that." It wasn't much, but it was something. I nodded. "I'll be here." April brought flowers and a tentative peace. Claire called after her therapy appointment. We agreed to meet on neutral ground, a park bench overlooking the river. The day was warm, cherry blossoms floating on the breeze. We sat side by side, watching the water flow. Neither of us spoke for a long time. "I'm angry at you," Claire finally said. "I've been angry for years." I turned to look at her. "Why?" Because you were the perfect mother. Because you made it look so easy. Because I can never measure up. Her voice broke slightly. Because you loved Dad more than you loved me. The words hit me like a physical blow. Claire, that's not true. Isn't it? After he died, you disappeared into grief. You barely saw us. You were there physically, but you weren't there. She wiped angrily at a tear. And then, when you started to come back, you were everywhere. Constantly at my house. Constantly with the kids. Like you were trying to make up for lost time by taking over my life. I sat very still, absorbing her words. Was that how it had seemed to her? I never meant to take over, I said softly. I was lonely. I missed being needed. And I felt smothered, judged, like I could never be the mother you were, the wife you were. We fell silent again, the weight of unspoken years between us. I'm sorry about the dinner party, Claire said finally. That was cruel. I was trying to prove something, that I didn't need you, that I had my own life, my own friends. And the will? The house? She looked away. Derek's been worried about money. His investments haven't done well. He started talking about how much the property would be worth if we sold it. I told him we couldn't, that it was yours. He said... She trailed off. What did he say, Claire? He said you wouldn't live forever, that we just had to wait. She looked at me, her eyes full of shame. I didn't stop him. I didn't defend you. I let him talk about your death like it was a business opportunity. The honesty hurt, but it was also a relief. Finally, the truth. I changed my will, I told her. The house goes to a charity for the elderly. The money goes to Ruth. Claire nodded. I know. That's why I came to your door that day. Derek was furious. He wanted me to convince you to change it back. She shook her head. But I couldn't. Because you were right. We killed you little by little. We erased you. Tears slid down her cheeks. I reached over and took her hand. She didn't pull away. I miss Dad, she whispered. I miss who we all were when he was alive. Me too. I don't know how to fix this. I squeezed her hand, and neither do I. But maybe we start by telling the truth, by seeing each other as we really are, not as we fear the other has become. She nodded, wiping her tears with her free hand. I'd like that. We sat there until the sun began to set, talking about Walter, about the past, about the hurt we had caused each other, not fixing everything, but beginning. As we walked back to our cars, Claire said, Ethan told me about your speech at his school. He said you were amazing. He's a good boy. You've raised him well. She smiled, a small but genuine smile. Would you like to come to dinner next week? Just us. No Derek, no pressure. I'd like that very much. We hugged goodbye, briefly but warmly. As I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in months. Not healed, not yet, but beginning to heal. May brought warmth and new growth. Claire and I began to rebuild slowly, carefully. Weekly dinners, phone calls, small truths shared in safe spaces. She started therapy. I continued with my writing group. We both learned to see each other as women, not just as mother and daughter. Ethan visited often, sometimes bringing Mia. They helped me in the garden, planting tomatoes where Walter's had once grown. Ethan built a bench under the old oak tree. For you to sit and write, he explained. Derek and I maintained a careful distance. Claire told me they were in counseling, working through their issues. I didn't ask for details. Some boundaries are necessary for healing. In June, I finished my collection of stories about Walter. 26 stories, one for each letter of the alphabet. A is for Asheville, where we met. B is for building, the house and our life. C is for Claire, our greatest creation. The Seniors Writing Circle published a small anthology. My stories were included. At the launch event at the library, I read aloud from It was for Walter. When I finished, I looked up to see Claire standing at the back of the room, listening. She approached as people were mingling afterwards. That was beautiful, she said. Dad would have loved it. Thank you for coming. I wouldn't have missed it. She hesitated. Mom, I've been thinking about the house. I tensed slightly. Claire, no, please listen. I don't want the house. I never really did. That was Derek's idea. She took a deep breath. But I don't want it to go to strangers either. It's too full of us, of our history. What are you suggesting? Keep it in your will as it is now, but maybe we could spend some time there together while you're still here. Make new memories. Teach Mia how to bake apple pie. Let Ethan learn about the woodworking tools in the garage. I felt tears prick my eyes. I'd like that very much. July brought heat and reconciliation. Claire and the kids came over every Sunday. We cooked together. We looked through old photo albums. We talked about Walter. Sometimes we argued. Old patterns die hard, but we found our way back to each other. One evening, as Claire and I sat on the porch watching the sunset, she said, "Derek and I are separating." I turned to look at her. "I'm sorry," she shrugged. "It's been coming for a long time. We want different things." She sipped her iced tea. "He wanted me to fight you for the house, to contest the will when the time comes. That's when I knew it was over." I reached over and took her hand. "Are you okay?" "Not yet, but I will be." She squeezed my hand. "You taught me that we can survive loss, that we can rebuild." In August, I had another birthday, 69. This time, my house was full. Claire and the kids, Ruth, who flew in from Charleston, Eleanor and Harold, the members of the writing circle. We ate cake on the porch. We told stories. We laughed until our sides hurt. As the party wound down, Claire found me in the kitchen, washing dishes. "Leave those," she said. "I'll do them later." "Old habits," I smiled, drying my hands. Claire leaned against the counter. "I have something for you." She handed me a small package wrapped in blue paper. Inside was a key. "What's this?" "It's a key to our house. To my house," she corrected herself. "I want you to be able to come and go as you please. No more waiting to be invited. No more feeling like a guest." I held the key tightly, feeling its weight. Thank you," she said softly, "for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on you." I pulled her into a hug, feeling her arms wrap around me, strong and sure. We stood there in the kitchen Walter had built, holding each other, mother and daughter, finding our way back home. Today, I wake up and have coffee on the porch. I listen to the birds. I smell the dew on the grass. Ruth visits every few months. Claire calls every day. Ethan is applying to colleges. He wants to study architecture, like his grandfather. Mia is learning to bake, standing beside me in the kitchen, flour on her nose, determination in her eyes. The house is still big, still full of memories. But now it's also full of life again, of laughter, of forgiveness, of love that bent but didn't break. And I've learned that family isn't just what we're born into. It's what we build, what we repair, what we choose to nurture despite the cracks and flaws. Eleanor and Harold come for dinner every Wednesday. Claire joins us sometimes. We sit around the table Walter built, passing dishes, sharing stories, creating new memories in the space of old ones. The writing continues. I'm working on a new collection now. Not about Walter this time, about us. About Claire and me. About breaking and mending. About the courage it takes to see each other truly, to forgive, to begin again. When Claire asked why I didn't fight harder, why I let her push me away for so long, I told her the truth. Because love isn't possession. It's liberation. It's giving someone the space to find their way back to you. Or not, but still loving them either way. She cried then. I held her. We both understood that some lessons cost too much, but must be learned anyway. If you're reading this and your heart recognizes something of your own story here, know that you're not alone. Families break, hearts break, but they can also heal if we're brave enough to speak our truths, to listen, to forgive not just others, but ourselves. And if you're waiting for someone to reach out, to bridge the gap between you, remember, sometimes we have to be the ones to extend our hands first, not because we were wrong, but because love matters more than pride. The wooden house still stands. The walls Walter built still shelter us. And inside those walls, we continue to build something else, A family that knows how to bend without breaking, how to speak truth with kindness, how to find our way back to each other when we get lost.